Welcome to Brew House. We are so glad that you have joined us. This is a weekly podcast and videocast series. We make fun of bad coffee. We love drinking good coffee. And more importantly, we really enjoy discussing and answering the tough questions that you guys, our wonderful audience, are asking us each and every week. So look forward to you guys tuning in. Every single week, we are going to answer a different question and just give you some of our thoughts and ideas around it. We would love participation, so please feel free to comment, email us, provide us feedback. We want to hear from you because this is only as good as the questions you ask.
With that structure that we see people questioning now, COVID is disintegrated some of our ideas around God because he hasn't kept us safe. Those kind of things. How would you encourage people through times of questions? Would you tell them to stop it, or would you tell them how would you tell them to move forward?
No.
Or ask them to move forward?
Be open.
Okay.
Acknowledge. Allow, when we get scared, we want to build defense.
Mm-hmm.
Allow that to open.
Mm-hmm.
I find for myself, I didn't intend to be 75, but I find myself being ready to understand, ready to explore.
Mm-hmm.
Turn it into that.
Mm-hmm.
Be curious. What is this about?
Okay.
What is this like?
Mm.
And you will likely discover that you're carried in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there'll be a few that don't. And unfortunately, they're caught.
Mm-hmm.
There's very little you can uncatch them.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're willing to say, I'll take a risk,
Mm-hmm.
I will open up, it's amazing how creative you are within.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm convinced for people, the way we are also sustained.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's an awful lot of sustaining that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay too.
Mm-hmm. So with that idea of kind of the flow, being with, I think sometimes when adversity happens or struggles take place, or even smaller things like we're hit with ideas that we may be initially opposed to, all of those things, we see all of those things, if I can say it this way, adversarially. They're against us. And I think that mindset maybe keeps us from being with.
Exactly.
And so how would you encourage people to just be with God, be with people?
You need to look for it.
Okay.
And that's one of the great things, you start with, well, what's going to happen then?
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in India, the last day I was there, I got a phone call that my wife is ill back here
Mm-hmm.
in Calgary. And I wanted to run home so fast. Well, you can't get there that fast.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found Amma, the leader, invited me to come and speak with him.
Mm-hmm.
And asked me about who was in my family.
Mm.
And tell me about them. He was great at taking a history,
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes, well, I will help you. Because there are often people that would love to help.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, in his spiritual context, he wished to help.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that fear, all of that difficulty fell apart as he put his arms on me or his hands on me. I don't know what he said. But again, it was a sense of presence, of goodness, of wishing. And it was a blessing that I was to carry back.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. And I think one of the things that comes to my mind as you're talking about that is Dr. John has a unique discipline that I actually find amazing. You every morning will read scriptures, but you will also write them.
Yes.
And can you talk about using that to be present, to be with?
Well, at first, I when I started doing that, I thought it was time to lock me up.
Okay.
And anyone who hears that this is what I do, you know, I'm not selective in it. I'm selective in right now going through the New Testament. That's a lot of time. And I'm not going to spend all that time for sure. But I am placing myself in a place where I feel secure,
Okay.
where I feel loved.
Okay.
And I write it down because my mind will go all over the place. And I'm writing it down. I'll never look at it again, but I write it out longhand because it holds me in that space for right now.
Okay.
And then I'll pick up the next verse. It holds me in that space right now. And it's a lovely way of starting the day.
That's awesome because I think, we've actually been talking about over the last several weeks in church about, trying, because I personally do believe that God is present. We're just not present to him.
Granted.
Right? And so that lovely idea that you do of writing scripture actually helps you be present to him.
Exactly.
And I think that's a great discipline. And so would you, one of the things that I find encouraging is, oftentimes people will say of other people who ask questions, so you're a divergent thinker, I'm a divergent thinker, and they would
We'll
say,
never meet.
exactly. We're always diverging. We're always going different places. And I think sometimes people look at that and go, well, if you just took scripturally serious enough, or if you just took faith seriously enough, you wouldn't have any questions. And I think it's the opposite, that we do take it extremely serious. And therefore we are asking really good questions of the scriptures. And so when you're talking with people, how would you encourage them with Jesus, with the scriptures, to ask good questions, to feel safe to be vulnerable to asking those questions?
I don't know specifically, because it may vary with people. Where I am, and I've come to see it as a gift, something I wasn't asking for. That whole sense of being in relationship.
Okay.
Being in relationship, first of all, God is big.
Yes,
No
he
kidding,
is.
right?
Yes, he is.
And so to be able to say, I belong.
Okay.
But it's not I belong and I better be right because he's going to kick me in the slats.
Okay.
Okay?
Right.
Because God don't do that.
Right.
So you listen. And then you think back. Was the divine, another word for God, was the divine present within that? What am I hearing? And not trying to force myself. That's why I write out my verses. Because it's planting the seed that at some point will pop up and say, oh, I remember that.
Right. Right. And so I think that comfortability, and I know, at least for myself, because I confess, everyone, I do have a very busy mind, and it is very hard to keep on point. I'm the guy that has a phone in his hand watching TV with a computer open, that way. And so I think there is, for a lot of us, there is this uncomfortability of being present. And I think the reason is because we're afraid of the God we're trying to be present to. We're maybe afraid of how he will receive us. And so in your times of being present with God, and you're helping other people be present to God, how do you help ease their fears about being with him, and how that easing of fear is connected with love?
Brother Lawrence, Practicing the Presence of God.
Yes.
Was that Brother Lawrence? I
Yes,
think
great
it was.
great book. Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah. We may not do it in any formal sense, but the practicing the presence, being aware of the presence. Be amazed how many indications all around you are there of, you're being held, you're being sustained. That counts. And you don't need to wipe it out because, and you won't be punished for it. And they won't say you're crazy. You're with the current. You're with the flow. That's how you get carried beyond.
Okay. And do you think over the years that you've been doing this and helping people, and would you feel very strong in the idea that God and Jesus, that they do enjoy us being present to them, that they do love us, that they even like us? Would
The God in whom I live and move and have my being.
Yes.
And that's there.
Yes.
Always.
Yes. Yes. Because I think, some people, deal with an innate fear, Dr. John, that maybe God won't accept them. Maybe God has to love them, but may not like them. What would you say to people that maybe are struggling? What advice would you give for people who struggle with some of that?
First of all, cool it. God is not vengeful.
Okay.
When I say God, I'm sometimes not sure what I'm saying.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
And we think that there must be some sort of payback. And God would be mad. He's, disappointed. Do you know how often when you're a kid and you knew they were disappointed with you? Right?
Right.
And that's the same with how we see God, and particularly Jesus. So let the sense of love. That's the other thing I love to talk about. Let love carry you. And these attributes. And then don't go out and watch some lousy movie that's full of all kinds of stuff.
Right.
Take time. Be okay. It's all right. If you're going to run a commentary, look around. What's happening there? As opposed to, I'm in deep doo-doo now.
Right. Right. So you have this friend that you were sharing with me, and we don't obviously want to say her name, but you have this friend that you had coffee with not too long ago, and she tells you in the conversation, I don't want to hear any of that religion stuff, but yet here's a person that I think is allowing herself, whether she likes it or not, to be caught up in love because she takes these amazing trips. You were telling me to Africa and what she does there, right? And so you would say that she's actually caught up in the flow of love that is pointing her towards God, right?
And I am just so intensely aware of flow. Maybe it's just because I'm older, but I think it's something that we can cultivate. That sense of being with, that sense of flow. And that really does help.
So, one of the things that we sometimes, we definitely get wrong in culture is that in culture, we tend to value youth. And one of the things that I do really appreciate about Scripture is that the Bible puts more value on age and wisdom than youth.
Yeah.
And so you're 75 now, you're retired, whatever that word means, and you are in a new place of life. And I've said this to you privately, and I'll say it publicly, that I think you are in your best years.
Oh, thank you.
Because of the journey you have.
What you've been smoking?
Because you have so much to share. And so what kind of things are you asking yourself at 75 of how you can continue to, this word that you use, contribute and help people and guide people? What are you wanting at 75 and beyond?
I want to love and be loved. I want to give of myself. And I'm delighted when we can do something like this, where I can give of myself because it completes me. Otherwise, I go on the garbage dump.
Oh,
Right?
and no, we're not going to let that happen.
But that's what I mean.
Right.
I want to be a fool for love.
Okay. Well, and one thing I think that the advice that you could give, what advice would you give people who call themselves Christians or Jesus followers? What advice would you give to them as they're encountering people throughout the week? What advice would you give them about being open? Or maybe some steps to becoming open?
Well, first of all, people climb up, and often there is the sense of shame or failure, or all that sort of stuff. And this is what's going to take a bit of effort. Speak back to that. That's not where you belong. Set yourself an intent. What will I learn here?
Okay.
What am I seeing here? What am I experiencing here? And let that be what carries it. You don't need to look at retribution or punishment. Look for ways you can relate to love. And so I'm out walking yesterday, and I see my friend. I see passes me by most times, but we every once in a while stop and talk for a little bit. Hey, that's wonderful. 15 minutes later, I'm passing a woman who sees me working on my sticks,
Yes, yes, your walking
my
sticks.
walking sticks. And she says, you walk with your walking sticks? Yeah, I used to do that. Well, why don't you do it now? Well, I stopped doing it. But I think you're onto something. And, that was great. I didn't need to know more. But to make those little brief, even one sentence contacts as I go along, I do that. Not necessarily for them. I'm not saying, oh, I'm being good. I'm saying, I'm doing this because I have to love.
Okay,
Because if not, I'll go down the tube.
okay. All right, fantastic. So, in closing, what would you say that your deep hope would be for Jesus followers, Christians, or the church? What would be your deep hope for us as we continue to move forward in this flow?
Very simple. Love. Love. See your life as reaching out, touching people. Love. Look at situations and you say, wow, I didn't believe that would happen, or this, or
Right.
that. And it's an unfolding diorama. I've never used that before.
Well,
But it's an
it sounds
unfolding
brilliant.
diorama, right?
Right, right.
And then life's okay. And I don't want to live with the regrets that say I'm old.
Right.
I want to find ways of being part of joy.
Right. Well, I think that that's fantastic, this idea of love and being part of joy. And so, listeners, I know that you've enjoyed hearing from Dr. John today. And if you have any questions, you can always email us at Brew House, or you can email me or Brennan separately at Shane or Brennan at dalhouseychurch.com. And Dr. John, I just want to say thank you again for coming today. It has been a high moment for me to be able to sit with you. And I thank you. I thank you for what you've been for me.
I'm my wife, my mother, whatever, would be crawling under the blankets.
No, you have been fantastic. This has been great. So everyone, thank you for tuning in. And again, spend time, be present, be open, and go with the flow of love. It's been great to talk to you. Thank you, Dr. John.